Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut. This is the first show which will be played immediately after the second live show ends, so if you're new to Nathan Oakley channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with Flat Earth Debate Uncut. Now I'm joined by Anthony Riley, who's hopefully going to discuss something that I have absolutely no idea about, but you'll all be as privileged as I will when he tells me exactly what it is he's got to tell me. So how are you doing, Anthony, first of all?
Cheesed off, Nathan, to be honest. Getting a bit of feedback, hang on.
No
Might have been me.
You don't have to stand on ceremony on this, but I know it's pre-record, but just, you know, pretend it isn't. Because no one's watching.
So we're acting as though it's live, right?
Well, this will get broadcast on the second channel, so I'll just tell you my intentions and then you can launch into yours. So what I'm going to do is, at the end of the second show, by the time that's finished, I will have uploaded and set to premiere this right now. So this will be part of the live show. So this recording will also include the live show when I start that. Does that make sense?
It will, but will the live show won't have this though, will it? What we're about to talk about?
No. So this is still, obviously it's for those watching on the second channel, the current time for us in the UK is 1:45. So 13:45 UK GMT time. And for the next 15 minutes, obviously we're not live, but this will get to the public in a smaller number after the show has finished live, if that makes sense.
It does. The only downside is that it doesn't go live. What we're about to talk about doesn't go live. So
yeah, but it will,
are we going to do it again?
Well, I don't know what you're going to talk about. So normally you tell me what you were going to talk about before we talk about it anyway.
Okay. But I wanted to do this with the audience watching it, so mind you, how are we going to do this then?
Oh, God. So when we go live, obviously we'll discuss it as well.
Okay. All right. So what we'll do is let's just jump into it then, and then we'll reference it when we do go live.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'll screen share with sounds. Screen share that display with sounds. Boosh. Right. Do you see my screen?
Not yet, but I will in a second. Yes, I do. And does this need to be presented to the audience on Nathan Oakley channel? It does.
Yes.
Okay. No worries. I can do that too. I think
we're good?
there. Yeah, we're done.
Happy days.
We're there. You're looking good.
Right. So last night, Non-Sec do a show it was quite late, and I was in bed when it happened. But I was aware that Conspiracy Cats was going on against somebody new that I've not heard of before. Forgive me, I can't remember the guy's name, but it sounded like he was half drunk, stoned, or both. And it wasn't really a particularly interesting show for that reason, but also because they were both on mobile devices. And when you're on mobile devices, generally you get a bigger latency. So the ping response time is delayed on both phones. And what they were doing was over-speaking each other continuously, accidentally, but continuously, and there was no flow at all. So it was really difficult to listen to it all. But I've had to watch it because there's issues that the guy is plainly getting wrong, but telling everybody on the non-sec side, which is mainly all the ballers, that he's right. And the purpose of what I'm going to show today is that this guy is completely wrong. He's misrepresenting stuff. And he's either he's reckless with it, because we've gone on about this for weeks, but he's telling everybody on the other side of the debate, the ballers that don't like coming in anymore because they get battered, that actually he's telling them the opposing view, which is completely wrong. So I've tried to play mediator. I've tried to get him in the show today, and he won't come in because he's basically because of the mute button. He's insistent that he was wronged by you in this particular clip. I asked him for some time stamps for where he claims that it's wrong. And basically, the context of what I'm about to show you is his reason for why he won't debate on this channel, because he believes that he's been wronged. All right. And I'm going to show it. It's only a small clip. But in this clip, this is the third and the fourth time that he's being asked for evidence to support an assertion that he's just made. And clearly, Nathan gets pissed off with it and mutes him because he's not answering the question. But what he's then doing is playing victim card, the victim status, because you've muted him, right? Notwithstanding the fact that he's been asked 3 and 4 times for this evidence to support the assertion, he's playing the victim card because you've muted him after losing patience with him because he's not giving evidence, which is the whole point of the show. So for the audience, if you watch this video and you think that Conspiracy Cats is right, that Nathan shouldn't have muted him, you are literally ignoring the facts that he's being requested to present evidence to support his position and not doing so. And I think that's complete and utter cowardice. He has to accept that he's been asked numerous times to do something and he hasn't done it. And that's the reason why he got muted. Not because Nathan's an arsehole. It's because he's not answering the question. Provide evidence for your position. But this is where Conspiracy Cats' beef lies with you, Nathan, right? So I'll play it, and then at the end of it, I want you to tell him what the position is. And I'm pretty certain you're going to say exactly what I've just said. So this is his beef with you, Nathan.
So why would there need to be a container on the outside?
Sorry, I don't want a question from you. Listen to what I say. You've only got a limited amount of time, so please repeat back to me what I say to you now. Show me gas pressure without a container. Show being the word I've used.
Well, I can't get my screen up. But what about the, we talked about the collapsing can demonstration before. I can get a can of Coke, I can heat it up, I can turn it upside down, the can crushes, and that's just out in the open, that's just out in a field.
Yeah, right, that would be the gas pressure from the outside of the container, crushing a container from outside to in. I'm asking you to show me gas pressure without a container. Third time I've said it to you.
So, right, well, I think you've got an understanding or a misunderstanding then of what pressure is. Pressure is that collision on a
I'll say it a fourth time. You're just ignoring me. Stop talking and listen. Don't give me an explanation. Shut up. Show me gas pressure without a container. Show it me. Don't explain it to me. Show it to me.
Right, so that's the crux of his point, that you've muted him, right? But you've asked him 3 times, and he's gone on for a 4th occasion where he's now on the 4th time when he's not giving the evidence. And you should interrupt him and mute him and remind him that you've asked him 3 times and now it's a 4th time. Nathan, do you want to speak directly to Conspiracy Cats and tell him where his problem is?
Yeah, if someone asks you for evidence of gas pressure without a container and you tell them you don't understand how the collisions work, that's not addressing the question.
So 3 times you asked him the question for evidence to show a gas pressure without a container. Now, this is the reason why that particular point is in housekeeping, because of him. In the same way that Paul Voigt's question about the molten iron core, that's in housekeeping because of Paul. That gas pressure existed next to or without a container is in because of Conspiracy Cats. He was asked 3 times for evidence to support his position, and he hasn't done it. So now he's complaining that he's getting muted, and that's the reason why he won't join the show. And I'm just saying that this is cowardice. At the end of the day, if you'd have presented evidence to support your position, that would not have happened. Or you could have just said, well, I can't produce evidence of my claim. And then we would have laughed at you. But the point is that Nathan muted you because you weren't doing what you should be doing, which is presenting evidence to support your position. And that's a foul. It's a debate show. You can't make assertions without evidence. Sorry, Conspiracy Cats, but if this is your best reason, your justification for not joining the show, I'm sorry, but that's just completely unacceptable. He muted you as the punishment for not producing evidence for your claim. And I agree with him. Okay, right, now cool. That's one out of the way. This next part is from the non-sec. Do you want me to start
the show live so you can just say exactly the same thing again?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you want me to start the show live so you can do the exact same thing again?
No, I'll just carry on and then we can...
Well, it's 5 minutes till the live time, so...
Well, that was... So what you're saying is you now want this to be live?
No, well, that's what you said. I said, you ordinarily, you'd tell me what you tell me. I just wouldn't mention that I was recording it, which I would have done anyway. So that would have gone on the next show. But today, I'm actually going to make a song and dance about that because I've come to a conclusion of how to order my shows. So it's just...
So why don't you just go live with the show and I'll repeat it?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Do you want me to go live so you can repeat it?
Right, just go live now then and we'll start again.
Okay.
Morning, Nathan. Everybody's over at Arwen's house right now. They're going to be over here in a minute.
Oh, where did that voice come from? Is that on the Hangout? Hey, Goy. Just about to start.
Yeah, I'll chat. I'll tell everyone at Arwen's house to come over here.
Okay. I'll be joined. I'd have done my intro and I've had vegan guy over the top of dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. Right, let's start.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below this video. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by, I think we've got Flat Earth Vegan Goy and Sleeping Warrior, although I've got Sleeping Warrior's page up, so I don't know if Vegan Goy will respond. But hey, both of you, if you are there, good to have you both.
Good morning.
Hey, hey, hey. So before we do any housekeeping, Anthony's got a presentation which, to be fair, he has shown to me already, and I'm going to give the first of probably many disclaimers today. So this show, for those of you who are slightly later risers, this show will get rebroadcast as like a +1. So once this entire live stream, so both show 1 and show 2 finish, immediately afterwards, show 1 will repeat on my second channel, which is Nathan Oakley. There's a link in the info box so that the people who didn't get to catch this particular broadcast can catch it straight after the second one finishes with a live chat. So click on the link in the info box and subscribe to Nathan Oakley to keep up to date with Flat Earth Debate Uncut. So you'll get the bits that are in between the shows, before and slightly after, when we're not actually running live. So Anthony's already filled me in on what he's going to tell you, the audience. But with that, do you want to take it away, Anthony? You're up on screen.
Right, I had the displeasure of watching the non-sex show this morning. It was on late last night, and I was in bed. And basically, the Conspiracy Cats was on with some guy, and forgive me, I don't know the guy's name. He's new, but they were both on mobile devices. And the problem with mobile devices is they both generally have greater latency, so the ping response times are a little bit slower. And what that causes is them to both speak over each other. So, like, they both start speaking at the same time. Then they both stop because they think they're interrupting. Then they both start again because the other one thinks they're giving way. And it's just so disjointed. It's so horrible to listen to. So, in future, guys, try and get on a PC and do it because it's miles better. But anyway, point is, Conspiracy Cats, I've tried to get him on to address some of the claims that he made on the non-sex show last night. And he basically won't join because he's holding on to the Nathan's got a mute button claim argument, which is complete nonsensical. But I asked him for why does he think that this is an acceptable position? And this is the clip that he's referring to. And in this clip, he's playing the victim card. And I use that phrase intentionally because he's pointing out the fact that Nathan mutes him, which he does, but he's ignoring the reason why he got muted. And I want to show the context because I want to show you how this is being misrepresented. And basically, the bigger picture is, yes, Nathan did mute him, but look at the reason why. He was asked 3-4 times for evidence to support his assertion. He kept failing to give evidence, and Nathan's getting more and more frustrated with why he's not presenting evidence to support his assertion. And you can see ultimately he does end up muting him. Now, if you accept that Nathan was wrong to mute the guy, then you are literally allowing or you're condoning the obfuscation tactic, which is not answering the question. If you think Nathan was right to mute him, then tell Conspiracy Cats this, because he needs to be told. He was muted as a punishment for not answering the question. So let's play the clip and let's see what actually happens in context. And then you can be your own judge and you can decide, did Conspiracy Cats play the victim card without merit, or was Nathan wrong to mute him in this circumstance? Because this is the reason why he doesn't want to join.
So why would there need to be a container on the outside?
Sorry, I don't want a question from you. Listen to what I say. You've only got a limited amount of time, so please repeat back to me what I say to you now. Show me gas pressure without a container. Show being the word I've used.
Well, I can't get my screen up. But what about the, we talked about the collapsing can demonstration before. I can get a can of Coke, I can heat it up, I can turn it upside down, the can crushes. And that's just out in the open, that's just out in a field.
Yeah, right, that would be the gas pressure from the outside of the container, crushing a container from outside to in. I'm asking you to show me gas pressure without a container. Third time I've said it to you.
So, right, well, I think you've got an understanding or a misunderstanding then of what pressure is. Pressure is that collision on a
I'll say it a fourth time. You're just ignoring me. Stop talking and listen. Don't give me an explanation. Shut up. Show me gas pressure without a container. Show it me. Don't explain it to me. Show it to me.
So I'll pause it there, right? So basically, Conspiracy Cat's position is that Nathan should not have muted him because he didn't deserve it. My position is you were asked 3 times for some evidence to support your assertion and you were failing to produce it, yet still demanding that your position was correct. And I think Nathan's totally right to mute you because you're basically not doing what you should be doing. And if you're going to come to a debate show without evidence for your assertions, guess what's going to happen? So I don't accept that you can be a victim and play the victim card because Nathan, quote, keeps muting you. Well, he's muting you because you're not doing what you should be doing. You can't just tell us stories that we've got to accept because you say the truth. We want to see the proof that it's true. And obviously, this is the reason why this questioning in housekeeping is in housekeeping. Because in the same way that Paul Voigt can't prove that there's a molten iron core, Conspiracy Cats can't prove that you can have a gas pressure without a container. And it's valid. It's a warranted reaction to failing to give support and evidence for the assertion that you're making, Conspiracy Cats. Nathan, do you want to address that?
Yeah, well, you've said it all, really. I mean, if you ask somebody the same thing 3 times, and 3 times they give you a red herring answer, so, for example, saying that gas pressure being heated up and then a can crushing under atmospheric pressure, that's not a demonstration of gas pressure without a container. When I asked him a 3rd time, he said, you don't understand how the collisions work. That's not gas pressure without a container. So I've asked him 4 times to give me an answer, and all he's done is tell me I don't understand how gas pressure works. Well, that's not giving an answer.
No. And
so
to be honest,
if he wants to cry victim for that, then fine, go ahead. No.
To put it in his lingo, it's like the child that's been given detention for repeatedly not giving his own work in or whatever. You're only going to allow that a couple of times before you punish the guy, and that you normally get detention, right? And then when he gets detention, what's the first thing that the teacher says when he starts complaining that he's on detention?
Shut up.
Should have done your own work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Conspiracy Cats, as much as I like you as a guy, and fair's fair, Nathan's response is justified because you weren't producing evidence to support your claim. And it's the reason why it's in housekeeping. So until you get evidence to show how a gas pressure can be in existence without a container, then unfortunately we're at a stalemate because you're hanging on the coattails of Rumpus's mute button and using it against yourself to support your position that Nathan's been draconian against you. No, he hasn't been draconian. You deserved it because you didn't produce evidence when requested when you made an assertion. And obviously Hitchens' razor applies, which states that assertions made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. And Nathan's totally justified. Don't make assertions that you can't produce evidence. Even if the evidence is weak, at least you produce something, and you can't do it, didn't do it, and you deserve being muted. I'm sorry, but that's my position on it.
I will just say hello to the people in the panel in a second. I don't mind if people want to go and ask Conspiracy Cats the same question. How do you have gas pressure without a container? And see if his answer's Nathan mutes me. Because if that's his answer, then good for you, Conspiracy Cats. Great answer. I've made a couple of videos and then given up on you. Yeah? You're still in my comments with your nonsense chat and hiding when you're in John Smith Globalized chat. That was hysterical, by the way. So Conspiracy Cats pretended to vanish. I said I was going away to disappear to set up my show, and then he came back again. So I asked him, and I'm not kidding, about 230 times, how do you have gas pressure without a container? I even numbered them as I asked them, and every single time I asked him. So let's put it this way, if I hadn't muted him, the audience would have been subject to me asking the same question 230 times as I did in John Smith Globalized chat. And I pointed out to Conspiracy Cats there, there's no mute button here, just answer my question. And he didn't. That's the reason he's not here, because he knows that he'll be asked the same question 237 times without being able to give an answer. All he'll be able to do is tell me I don't understand gas pressure. That's his answer. And I'm not going to tolerate it. No. Sorry, Conspiracy Cats. If you want to play foul victim, then give us an answer to the question. How do you have gas pressure without a container? And with that, I'm going to say a massive hello to all the panel members who are much more important than this little tete-a-tete between myself and Conspiracy Cats. But thank you very much, Anthony. I really appreciate it. And hello to
Riley, keep it low because Nathan want to introduce the panelists. Thank you.
You want to introduce them? Go ahead, Jose. You be my guest.
We want to give a very warm welcome to Ranty Flat Earth. Jim is right over here. This is Vegan Goy, right? And then we got Arwin, Chocolate Sane, and Jose. How are we today?
Good to have you
all doing good.
Excellent. We were in the little competition for the first few minutes of the show, Nathan. We got caught up in the Arwin show, in the early bird.
So early?
I didn't intend to. So, as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm just doing a slightly different arrangement in terms of how I record and broadcast the show, so that when the second live show ends, this show that we are literally recording and broadcasting right now, the extra bit, so the bit when Anthony came on and said, oh, by the way, I want to talk about Conspiracy Cats, that bit, along with the live show, will get broadcast immediately after the second live show ends. So in other words, for the people in the States that are still in, those people can still see this show with a live chat pretty much as soon as it's finished, along with a bit extra, just to encourage people who may not be, like, I don't want to watch it twice. Well, there's an extra bit, so you can see the bit between the shows when there's a break, and the bit warm-up, if you want to call it that, the pre-show, while the early bird show that Arwin does is actually running. I'm obviously just sat here, so I might as well be recording, and I do. That bit goes out on the second channel, Nathan Oakley, which is in the link in the info box. I just messed up the timing slightly. There you go.
And the other reason is because I wanted to present something against what happened on the non-sec show last night. And I knew that I didn't want to cut in too much into the hour. So I thought, well, give me 10 minutes before, and then we can get most of it out of the way with. And then now, instead of taking 15, 20 minutes in the show, I can just take 10 minutes in the show, right?
Yeah, that's actually true. That it's not me messing up the timing at all. It was you requesting it specifically.
Sure. Well, so, let me crack on, because the quicker I get through it, the quicker we can carry on, like, chatting about valid stuff. Well, mind you, this is valid, but just check this out, right? So the first point is the point against Conspiracy Cat's reason for not coming in the show. It's completely nonsense. You were being punished because you weren't answering the question. Now, the next from this bit here, this next clip is in relation to Polaris. And his claim is that Polaris, basically, for every 1 degree that you travel down the curvature of the Earth, Polaris acts in a very particular way that is specific to living on a globe. And he says that this is absolutely a cast iron proof that we live on a globe. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play the clip that he says, and then I'm going to show that his claim is fallacious on 2 counts, and I'll give you the reasons why after.
That we can go anywhere in the northern hemisphere and look at Polaris at the same angle in the sky as our latitude means literally there is no other geometric shape other than a sphere that can explain that model. And when we flip that and we go under the equator, the southern hemisphere, and we look at the southern celestial pole, we get exactly the same. So what I'm wondering is, what is the flat Earth explanation for being able to see the celestial poles at the same angle in the sky as our latitudes? And there we go.
So these are all specific clips that are they're not in sequential order, so there's no copyright issue with them, Nathan. Now, what he does say is he does produce some evidence. What he's showing here is that there is the rotation point in Malaysia, which is X amount of degrees, and that supports his claim. So on this occasion, he does give some evidence, but listen to how he attacks the other guy for failing to produce evidence. Bear in mind the clip I've just shown you where he was punished by the mute button for failing to produce evidence. Listen to the level of criticism the other guy gets.
What I'm saying is, we can physically, you can do it now. You can go out, and if it's not cloudy, you can look at Polaris, you can measure the exact angle, and we can predict it. I can go to Scotland and visit Dell, and I can do it from there. I could go down to London, and I can measure it from there at different latitudes, and it will always be the same angle in the sky as a latitude. You can do it. We can go to the North Pole, and as you said yourself, it's straight above the North Pole, 90 degrees above our head at a latitude 90. It will only work. Well, the relevance is geometrically, there is no other physical shape that is possible to allow the northern celestial pole to be seen at the same angle in the sky as our latitude. I'm happy to move on, right? I'm happy to move on if you can say, all right, fair enough.
So basically, he wants him to concede that he hasn't got an explanation, right? And he's reasserting his point numerous times that Polaris represents in the sky 1 degree for every X amount, and he's asserting this vehemently, right? Now I'm going to show you why this original assertion of his, the claim that he makes, is fallacious. It's wrong.
Just before you do, It's an
So
affirming the consequent
physicality
form of
assumption.
logical fallacy. It also begs the question.
Correct.
Can I point that out as well afterwards? Or unless you're ready?
Right. Go on. Let's deal with the reification fallacy first. Nathan, what's he doing with regards to the reification fallacy?
Well, it's using a model. So it's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy, first and foremost. It's also begging the question. So if the Earth is a sphere, if P, then we will see rotation of the stars in the north and south hemisphere, Q. We see rotation points in the north and south hemisphere, Q. Therefore, the Earth is a sphere, P. So if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. That's a formal logical fallacy. And he pretty much said it in its full format. So he formalised it completely. So he's got a formal logical fallacy that begs the question. So he's trying to prove the Earth's a sphere. Well, according to this diagram on screen, the Earth's already a sphere. So he's already got the guy begging the question, assuming the Earth's a sphere, and then saying, if I assume the Earth's a sphere, it's the only geometrical shape it can work on. Oh, really? So you know how to beg the question, do you? No wonder you don't want to come here.
Yeah. Now, I want you to respond preemptively to the ballers that say, I don't really see the problem with that, because if the Earth is a sphere, it'll conform to the behaviour that you're expecting. And if it does then conform to the behaviour you're expecting, why is it not okay to affirm the consequence?
Oh, well, let me correct you, globehead morons. That's the formal logical fallacy. If the Earth is a sphere, that's affirming the consequent. It's also begging the bloody question. You're assuming your outcome. If the Earth is a sphere, then we will see southern rotations in the hemisphere that I describe and have presumed. God, don't these guys understand formal logical fallacies? We've gone through them. They're obviously brain dead. No wonder he doesn't want to come here. The first rule, don't beg the question, is broken immediately with this example. No wonder he doesn't want to come here.
Well, basically, what the problem is that one doesn't necessarily follow the other. So yes, it might seem logical, but you haven't proved that it is. And yeah, it's a correlation, right? It's not a cause. So it's a perception of belief, right?
Let me give the dumbed down example.
I don't think they really see the problem. I don't really think they really understand the consequence of formal logical fallacy.
Well, I'll give it them in dumbed down form.
They're used to being allowed to do that in their circles. It's the way to go. So
every single globe proof is a begging the question fallacy. Every single one. I haven't found an example thus far that doesn't assume R. So the problem is, if I formulate a different logical fallacy, formal logical fallacy, and affirm the consequent, if I eat 10 hamburgers, then I am full. If P, I eat 10 hamburgers, then Q, I am full. I am full, Q, therefore I ate 10 hamburgers. P, well, no. I could have just had a Chinese dinner. It doesn't necessarily follow that the thing you're assuming is the outcome of the thing that you have observed. In this case, star rotations. You just assume you're on a sphere to begin with, then see that it works out when you beg the question, assume you're a sphere, and make your observations with the sphere assumed. Idiots.
How about if you say, if the world is a matrix, then you can see anything you want, therefore the world is a matrix.
Perfect, exactly. If the world is a computer simulation, then we will observe rotation across the plane above our heads. We observe rotation across the plane above our heads, therefore the world's the matrix. No!
So, and the other point is that it's a reification fallacy, in that if it's an overuse of what is basically a model, in this case is this description, this diagram, overusing this concept, this diagram, as real. And this is not real. This is a description, right? He hasn't produced any evidence that his actual claim is real. He's basing it on this diagram. And by doing it, that again, it's the lack of empirical evidence to support the assertion in the first place that makes it reification in this instance, because he's basically confusing a model with reality, because he thinks that this is what we live on and he thinks it's reality. So there's numerous things wrong with his position in the first instance. But now let me just cite the evidence that's directly against him, the opposing evidence that's directly against him. It comes from Mick West himself. So listen, shut up. So listen to what's being said by Mick West. Hang on a sec. You need to go there. Listen to what Mick West actually says and look at what he does. It does take 2 minutes, but you'll understand the point. Bear in mind that Conspiracy Cat's position is that for every X amount of distance you travel Polaris will move by 1 degree, and it's predictable. It's perfectly predictable, right? But cites no evidence to support him. This is the evidence that shows that he's wrong.
What I did is I waited until some very distinctive stars appeared. These 2 stars right here. And I took this section of the image and I took it into Photoshop, increased the contrast, and then placed a line every 1 second where the leading star was. So here's the full clip. I've added a time code so you can see that the star does in fact coincide with the line at the exact 1 second mark. And here it is again at 1/4 speed. Now if you look carefully at the leading star of the 2 stars, when it hits a red dot or a green line, it's going to be exactly the same as the second mark on the time code. So here it is coming up on the 5 second. So 5, 6. So it's showing that these lines are spaced exactly 1 second apart, and as you can see, they get significantly closer together as you get closer to the horizon. So what would this look like if it was actually going at a constant speed? Well, let's add some blue dots showing what would happen.
So let's just be clear. The rotation of the Earth is a constant. Yeah? Watch what happens with a constant speed. This is the empirical proof that Conspiracy's cat's assertion in the first place fails.
Comparing the actual positions in the red dots with the extrapolated positions in the blue dots, you can see how far behind the star is lagging behind its actual geometric position, the blue dot. Here's a close-up of the final situation showing just how far this star's visual position is behind the actual position.
Just how far is his phrase, right? So what this is showing is that the claim that Conspiracy Cat makes, that Polaris will always move by 1 degree, shows that as it gets towards the horizon, because the stars are getting further away from us, it means that they're going to slow down on a flat plane, because the further something gets away, it's like when you watch planes get towards the horizon, it's really fast when it goes over your head, but by the time it gets right the way down towards the horizon, you sat there watching it for ages and it's not moving. And the same happens with the stars. So the claim that Polaris moves by exactly 1 degree for a given distance, and that proves that we live on a sphere, and it's only a sphere possible when he asks for the explanation on a flat Earth. All right, the new guy couldn't do it, right? But this is proof that the claim in itself, before we even get to a flat Earth explanation, fails, because the stars don't do what he thinks they do. They do something different. And what do you know? The thing that it does different just so happens to be the flat Earth explanation, because as things converge towards the horizon, everything squashes. And in this context, it means that that squash is slowing the stars down. And by virtue of that fact alone, it means that we cannot live on a sphere, because on a sphere, it would be a constant speed. Conspiracy Cats, you're wrong. That's the proof that proves you're wrong. That's what you should have been doing when Nathan was asking you for proof of a gas pressure next to without a container. You should have been presenting evidence, and now I've presented evidence. That's what you should be doing, right? So let's move forward. That deals with the claim. The claim. Oh, by the way, that's the assertion in the first place fails, because the claim, there's no evidence that supports his claim. The counter evidence is on a flat plane, it's convergence. And that's what as stars get further away from you, they slow down. Why? Because we live on a flat plane. So there's the counter. So your claim fails in the first place, and the counter evidence is perfectly supported because we don't live on a sphere. If it was a sphere, it would be a constant. It's not constant, is it? Right, next clip. This is about Ranty's boat, and this is really, really bad, because either Conspiracy Cats doesn't watch the show, which we all know he does, or he watches the show and then thinks, I'll cherry pick this and I'll go and represent it in a different package on non-sec. And when I do this, I'm going to make sure that everybody thinks that Ranty has proved ball Earth, right? So he's going to argue about the boat going over the horizon. And we all know that boats don't go over any horizon, right? So we know that he must be wrong. So let's listen to what he actually says, and then we can laugh at him.
I know it's rhetorical, but I want to answer your question. Boats over the horizon also requires you beg the question and input what you claim is being obscured by the sphere Earth into the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator. So presumably that's what they did?
Not really. Let's see what he says. No, he doesn't do that. He misrepresents what Ranty's boat video actually does. and he tells people that it's something else. And we've done, I mean, I don't know how many shows we've done on this now. It must be pushing at least 15. And he's totally misrepresenting what this is actually doing. And he's claiming that it's the curve of the Earth that's doing it. So let's listen to what he says.
But what I'm going to show you now, I swear to God, was taken by a flat earther called Ranty Flat Earth. He had...
wait, how do you know
what do you call it? A GoFundMe thing? Because he's part of the Flat Earth
really
Nathan Oakley. Either way, right. He's got a P900 camera, right? He's got a P1000 camera, and he spent half an hour zooming in on a boat, watching that. It was a massive boat, right? Watching it go right over the horizon, top to bottom. So when that gets looked up in a minute, I'd be really interested in your flat Earth explanation of how you can debunk this video. And this was taken by a flat earther. No, listen to the question I'm going to ask you, right? I'm going to be very specific about the question, and I want to answer the question specifically that I'm going to ask.
So let's just draw parallels to when Nathan was asking him specifically for a question to do with gas pressure, and he wants a very specific answer with some evidence to support it. That's what he's now asking of this gent. So let's see the hypocrisy. When he's being asked of it himself, he complains that he gets muted, but now he's asking this guy, and listen to how adamant and demanding he is of this guy, right? Aside from the fact that the guy's drunk or stoned or both, look at his behaviour with this guy and then compare it to what how he was treated with Nathan and wonder why he's now doing this, because basically it's double standard, it's hypocrisy. But let's go on.
Boat takes half an hour to go over the horizon, and we can skip through the video, and I'll post a link so anyone can watch this later on. It's not made up. As this boat takes half an hour to go over the horizon, it very slowly disappears from the bottom up.
It very slowly disappears from the bottom up over the horizon, he says.
Very, very slowly. And as the bottom disappears, the angular size of the top of the boat does not disappear anywhere near the same rate as the disappearance of the bottom of the boat. Not that it should anyway.
Now, this is where my dogs are probably going to react a little bit, so if they do, I'll try and shut them up. But
I'm asking you is, what explanation have you got? I don't want to hear about Copernicus and what he used to do with his telescopes, right? What scientific explanation have you got what you're seeing right now on the screen?
I'd like to explain. I get it.
I've asked you specifically. Okay, so let me explain the question.
How to explain
I've asked you specifically, why is that boat disappearing from the bottom up? And why is the obstruction the water?
So the question is, and he keeps asking this several times, why is it disappearing from the bottom up? And why is the obstruction water, right?
Why can we see the water line that high up, but the boat somehow is magically cut off? And why is the boat magically cut off at the exact point the water line meets it? And why does the angular size of the top of the boat not disappear as fast as the bottom of the boat? What is the actual science behind what you talk? Because it's all right you just saying there's a horizon, a second horizon, and Copernicus was a cool dude. It's all right you're saying all that, but what is the actual science? Because I have a scientific explanation, and that is exactly what's predicted by the globe.
Now, we can't make a prediction on the globe Earth because he doesn't know how far away the boat is. But we can guarantee that that boat's a lot further away than what the curvature of the Earth calculator thing tells us it should be when it starts to, quote, disappear. So he's already saying that he knows that it's consistent with the curvature of the Earth, but he doesn't know the distance to the boat. So we can't actually make the claim of the curvature of the Earth in the first place. But he's telling everybody that he can do and that it supports it. No, you haven't produced any evidence that supports the claim that you're making. So again, it's an assertion without any evidence. But again, he's demanding that this guy ask him with some science and be very precise with his answer.
Anthony, can you just play the last... Sorry, Anthony, can you just play the last 10 seconds? I want to hear exactly how he claims that... I think he said it, I can explain this scientifically. I want to hear exactly what he says.
What is the actual science? Because I have a scientific explanation, and that is exactly what's predicted by the global.
I have a scientific explanation. Excellent. Right, conspiracy cats. I am now going to hold you to that. I would like to hear your scientific, and you know what science means, don't you? You're a science teacher. So I want first your observed phenomena. I think we all know what that's going to be. Then I want your hypothesis. So I want your quote-unquote scientific explanation for Ranty's observation. That's what I want. You've claimed it, and you're going to give it me. Or I'm going to embarrass you, because you haven't got a scientific explanation for this. You won't be isolating independent and dependent variables. You won't be performing systematic experimentation. And when I point that out to you, I'm going to have a damn good laugh at your stupidity for being a science teacher that doesn't understand what science is.
Yeah, I couldn't have. And let's see him identify the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis as well, because he's not going to be able to do it, and he knows he's not, but he's claimed that he can. So again, he's telling people that there's a scientific explanation, and actually it's not. It's just an explanation that's wrong, and I'll show the evidence for why it's wrong later. But again, notice how his tone to this guy is very, I want the answers now, give me the answers. But when Nathan did that to him and he didn't do it, and Nathan then muted him, he played the victim card, right? So let's hear him carry on.
You can say the words, there's a second horizon, but if you can't explain to me now the exact science behind how it's made, I'm just going to assume you're making it up.
Well, you can't assume whatever I want. I mean,
How is it
density? Air has density. If you're looking through the most dense part of the air,
okay,
it's gonna be more obstructive.
So let me ask you a question next, by the way. So if I was to take, just let me ask you a hypothetical question. If I was to take an egg or even a wedding ring, right? Hang on. If I was to take an egg,
this bit should have been one that I removed because it's chaff.
It goes right there.
Yeah, I think this is chaff. This bit, I'll get rid of this bit. So this is the next bit we go to.
My point is, this is a frustration, right? When I ask flat earthers things about boats going over the horizon, they throw back these throwaway terms like, oh, it's density, it's a second horizon, it's an angle of attack, it's perspective.
Nobody else
right?
says that.
But literally,
Who else says
believe me, they do. Right?
They do.
Right.
But literally, when pressed, just like you've been pressed tonight, when actually pressed for a proper scientific explanation, right, you can't give one.
So he claims that when pressed, we can't explain this, right? So he's either lying. Well, I'm going to have to say the word lying because I know he watches the show, and we've explained this, 15 times in the last 15 shows? The angle of attack is something to do with it. As the angle reduces, it does cause this effect. We've had ballers that go and validate this. And one of his counters was, Ranty disproved it with his P1000. So I had to explain to him that Ranty was doing that to show that it's the aperture that's causing what we see. It was a deliberate fail. It wasn't a fail to. It wasn't a debunking. We were varying the aperture of the camera to demonstrate that if you did the same or a similar observation, you don't get it. So we were demonstrating that it is the aperture that's causing it. But he thinks that that was a debunk. And I'm like, no, conspiracy cats, you've misrepresented or you've misunderstood. Either way, you're wrong. And you should come on the show and defend yourself. And he isn't going to come on because of the mute button. But the fact remains that he's misrepresenting, or he's telling people that Ranty's failure to do the carpet thing, the floor thing, he said that was a debunk. And I was like, no, he's showing that the aperture is the cause. He deliberately did it with that camera on purpose to show that it didn't do it with a P1000. But your eye is like an iPhone, and your iPhone is not like a P1000, conspiracy cats. The difference between the two in this instance is the aperture. And he doesn't get it. Or if he does get it, he's telling people the wrong thing anyway. So anyway, I'll carry on.
Well, before you do, sorry again to interrupt. Do you want me to actually play out? Because I have since put together an angle of attack video using Ranty's footage with the egg. Can I play that now?
If you want to, yeah.
Okay, I'll stick that up. So just so it's a bit more concise. Just give me a couple of seconds to get it queued.
So while Nathan's doing that,
I'm done.
I just want to... Are you done?
I am. So I'll just play it out without audio because it's annotated. So this is people on flat floors, but there's Ranty's egg. I should really pause it when it gets to the right moment. Just missed it. Here we go. So Ranty's drawn some lines. I thought Ranty was here. Oh, he is. Ranty? I'd much rather you talked us through this than me.
Okay. Well, why am I getting an echo there?
Oh, maybe it's me. Sorry.
Well, yeah, we've already been through this. Outside of the narrow viewing angle, everything stays the same. All the lines that are put in there are consistent. The eyes, the top of the head, the mouth, they're all consistent. Everything beneath the center point, which is just underneath where you've written limited angle of view, everything beneath that is stretched and warped, and you can't even make out what the ring looks like anymore. So it is actually having that narrow angle is still having an effect on it. It's also, there is an inferior mirage as well on the track, which was unexpected, really, considering that the track itself isn't supposed to be reflective in any way. But that just goes to show that it's some kind of effect that goes on at these very, very narrow angles that you're trying to view things at. If you've also got a minute as well, Nathan, if you want to just quickly flick to my screen, I've just got 2 quick things just to show.
Related, yeah, because I just want to keep...
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it is
go
related,
ahead. You're up. You're on.
Okay, so...
You're on.
So, this is a video that I'm actually working on right now about the boats going over the horizon. So you can see that I've already got all the script written out at the bottom. I'm actually just putting the rest of the video together. It's talking about this exact observation.
You're killing my thunder.
The inferior mirage.
It's all right. We're all fighting for the same battle.
And one thing I would also like to when he was talking about out of the narrow angle, it retains its angular size. So if I show you on the full screen here, it appears to be retaining its angular size at the top, and the bottom is, crushed, compressed. I can show you by virtue of another video that I've actually got up right now. This one that I took a few days ago, and this was from the boat was in essentially the same location when I took this. And you can actually see how compressed the actual hull of the boat is. And it just so happens that on the day that I filmed that boat for 21 minutes whilst it disappeared, we actually saw an inferior mirage in this compression zone here. So it just appears that on this day, the atmosphere showed it as a compression. On the other video, it turned it into an inferior mirage. But whatever was happening, it was happening in the atmosphere, and it certainly wasn't happening over the water.
Yeah, and let's be clear on that. You can see the blue part of the boat that's underneath that they would say is behind the curve of the Earth, but we're saying actually it's being compressed.
So it ain't going over no curve, it's squashing at the horizon because of the limited angle of view. So it ain't going over no curve because there's the bottom of the boat still, just very squashed.
So when you say things like it's being obstructed by the water, actually it's not. You're ignoring the fact that for whatever reason it's being squashed. Now, all right, maybe it is something to do with this, that, and the other, and we're getting closer to what is causing it, and it may well be that we've found what's causing it. But what we do know is it's not doing what you claim it's doing, which is going behind the curve or being obstructed by water. It's being squashed, and you guys think it's falling behind the curve, but it's not.
And I just want to point out that on certain days it has different effects. So this is what this 8 months of observations has showed to me, that on some days we get an inferior mirage in that compression zone here. On other days we actually just see the compression. It just depends on the air clarity. On this day we're getting the compression. On other days we see the inferior mirage in this location, in this exact location here is where we get the inferior mirage. And the further the boat is away, the more the angular size of it has changed. It gets itself lower towards the actual inferior mirage. So that's why the inferior mirage distorts what you're seeing. And as
the other thing to mention is that if this observation that he's got on screen right now was done with the P900, because of the aperture, conspiracy cats, what we would have seen would have been more of a reflected layer underneath. It would have been like more of a mirage, that layer of reflection that we've all been talking about for show after show after show. But because it's on the P1000, it's got a bigger aperture, he has to zoom in further to get a similar result. But the P900, it would have been showing that, and it would have all been blurred, and it would have been difficult to distinguish. But because the P900's got better zoom and it's a better camera, this is revealing what's going on, and we can see that for whatever reason it's being squashed. And you guys all think it's curvature.
Yeah, so just to let you know, the video will be out today when I've put it together and finished it. Conspiracy Cats, if you want some answers, I suggest you go back and watch that video, which will not only expose your lies, but also show to everybody that wants to see it exactly what is happening in that video.
Okay, I'm gonna tear Ranty off Conspiracy Cats back and put Anthony back on it.
Yeah, let me know when we're back on mine.
You're on.
Right, so this is the continuation. So I'm nearly done now with the rest of this one. But listen to, because these other clips at the end are the counter evidence, and Jose is going to come into it right at the very end. And I forgot to put Jose's clip in, so remind me about Jose. But listen to the way that Conspiracy Cats is talking to this guy.
Literally, you're using these throwaway terms without any kind of understanding of what you're talking about, but you're sticking by it like glue, right? What I really urge you to do, honestly, is go away and learn what density is, learn what refraction is, right? Learn what perspective is, learn what geometry is. And if you did that, you'd see that all the things that all the observations you make in the real world fit with the globe model perfectly.
Or prove that the globe model's wrong, because whatever's going on, it's literally squashing the boat. Right, so this is basically now, this is the same footage that Conspiracy Cats was using in the non-sex show, but it's been motion tracked so that the boat stays in the middle of the picture. He sped it up by some degree, and I've sped it up again just so it's concise. So he's timed it by 50, and then I've sped it up even more. And what his claim is that the boat is dropping behind the curvature of the Earth. right? And he's ignoring the fact, or he doesn't realize that there's a mirroring that's actually being the obstruction. And the boat isn't actually obstructing anything. The boat's getting smaller because it's getting further and further away. But if it was going behind the curve of the Earth, the water would be rising up above the boat and it would be dropping behind the water. But that's not happening. What's happening is the boat's just getting smaller from the top down because of perspective. It's getting further away from you. But the mirroring, it's literally, if I go back to this little bit here, you can see that you can see that it's clearly being mirrored in some way, because you can see that there's the white part of the bridge above. So it's literally cutting in across the image in the middle of the image there, and then everything below it is mirrored. And we've said it many, many, many times, and it is to do with the angle. Again, you can see that the white now of the bridge is being reflected for whatever reason, but it's not falling behind the hump. It's literally being squashed because of convergence. It's getting smaller because of perspective, and the mirroring is becoming greater again because of the angle. So it's a combination of those three things all together that when you speed this boat really up and you have it motion tracked, you can see that it's not dropping. It's getting distorted, but it ain't dropping. It's staying in exactly the same height wise. It's just getting smaller as a function of distance, and that is perspective. But it's perspective with the angular resolution and with the mirroring effect that we're seeing and caused by whatever. Now, he was adamant that he wanted to see a scientific explanation on flat Earth from the opponents, right? Now, the opponent obviously isn't familiar with the Soundly stuff, or if he is, he doesn't know all the counters to it. But this was done in response to the Soundly thing.
This will not be a scientific explanation.
No, but what this does do is shows the reason for why when Nick from Phuket Word, and this is on his video called Perspective is Not Curvature, I think it was called. He gets on top of a dam and he's looking at the horizon, and you can see where the land, the road meets the trees in the background. And what he's about to do is drop down to a level and then show that whatever goes on when you drop your angle down, it lips back on itself and it reflects back on itself, right? And that's what's happening with the boat. So I'll show it now. This is over less than a mile.
Yeah, so he limiting the angle of view. I mean, basically, Phuket Word, Nick, big shout out to you, Nick, your ace, and Good Times for All were the first two people I saw to be doing this, to recognise what was actually going on as you limit your angle of view. So he goes right down to the road, and what do you know? It's like something's obscuring it.
Now, if that was the boat that was on the horizon, and bear in mind we see the Armco barrier that's going off to the same point that the boat's at, but then it starts to reflect back on itself for whatever optical reason, right, angle or whatever that is, the boat would be doing the same thing, and it would be reflecting the underside of it. But you guys would think that it was being obscured by the curvature of the Earth because it looks like it's disappearing from the bottom up. And you ignore the fact that it's something to do with the angle, and you ignore that it's optical, right? Some kind of optical effect. We might call it a phenomena. But the point is that this is what's going on with the boat, and we can demonstrate it, and you can see these lippy, curvy bits at the end of both sides. And that's the same as what we see with Soundlies, but this also applies to the boat because basically it's mirroring the top of the trees underneath itself. And that's why you've got the perception that boats appear to go behind the curve, but they're not. They're not being obstructed by the water until you get low enough, and then it's literally the waves. Because it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller into the distance, as you get lower and lower and lower, or it gets far and far enough away, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, the waves in the foreground start to then block it out. But you think that's the curvature of the Earth, and you think that water's the hump. But you ignore the fact that the boat gets smaller and smaller and smaller away, and then you're bringing your eyes closer and closer to the tippy tops where the waves start to crest, and then all of a sudden it does start to disappear behind water, but it's not the hump of the Earth that it's disappearing behind, it's the cresting waves, because the target's got that small on the horizon now that you don't need very much of a big wave to make it disappear. The wave itself, because it's closer to you and it's significantly bigger than the target, is the perspective block. And it's nothing to do with the curvature of the Earth, but you'll still tell everybody that it is. Well, I've got news for you, Conspiracy Cats. It's not. We can repeat this. We can get the same effect on a short distance on a flat plane, and we can demonstrate that what you claim is curvature of the Earth because it's obstructing the boat from the bottom up is nothing more than something to do with the angle. Why? Who knows? But it does. And that's the reason why you are misrepresented.
So why
That's the reason why your misrepresentations in the non-sec channel last night are without evidence to support your own position in the first place, fundamentally flawed when presented evidence opposing your position, and you obviously still won't come on and join the show because you think that Nathan's going to bully you with the mute button, but we've just demonstrated that he asked you 3 or 4 times. And overall, your arguments last night were misrepresentative of what the reality is from our perspective. You've either been ignoring the show or you just literally misrepresented it. So for everybody in chat, next time you see Conspiracy Cats, make sure you ask him what evidence has he got for the gas pressure without a container, because that's the reason why it's in the what's it called, the housekeeping.
The housekeeping.
And it's because of this one clip that he now uses against Nathan, because he was asked 3 times and a 4th to demonstrate it, and he can't demonstrate it, but then pulls the victim card, and that, in my world, is just being a coward. I'm done. Thank you for your time,
join on
gentlemen.
the main hangout, and I'm going to go through. Hey Apollo, I'm going to go through the housekeeping, but with a slight difference. So what I want to do, hopefully once Anthony rejoins the hangout, is ask the questions, but attribute the people who have failed to actually demonstrate this in the first instance, and attribute them to that particular housekeeping question by name. I mean, there may be a couple that haven't got anybody attributed to them, but we'll see. So we'll start with curvature. So any signs of curvature, and I'll get the answers first, so maybe there is actually somebody with a sign of curvature. Hey P, any signs of curvature?
No.
Hello?
Nope.
Yeah, Jamie Brown.
Nope.
Jamie Brown showed it.
Jamie Brown showed curvature, did he?
Yeah, he proved the curve.
I don't think
so. He did a hangout yesterday.
Have you got any evidence for that assertion?
Hold on, my first question to that, was it actually a curve? Like an edge that is curved? Did we see anything that was curving?
Yeah.
No, he was not. He was just talking. Jamie Brown did a podcast talking. He didn't present anything in the footage, in any footage.
Okay.
And that's how he proved the curve.
I mean,
he'll be fine. He's just asked some questions. He'll be back.
Okay. I mean, I would attribute this question, the start of this journey, to Gem Panda. So Gem Panda spotted Mackled Lighthouse in the composite that often flies by on these screenshots. Here we go, right away. Perfect timing, right on cue. So Mackled Lighthouse was the start of us appreciating that the curve calculator is actually, and affirming is a begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator. Hence, there's no curve, there's no x-axis curve in this picture, there's no left to right curvature being viewed, but we are led to believe, by way of the begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, that if anything is obstructed whatsoever, then that's caused by the leading edge of the sphere Earth blocking your view. Well, that's simply not the case. As I say, it's just a begging the question fallacy. But that was the start of that particular curve being debunked. So would everybody agree, or would somebody else attribute a start to that journey? There's Mackled Lighthouse. So would you say that Gem Panda would be the attribution of the demise of the curve calculator?
Yeah, that was one of those beautiful moments in the history of the show, in that this was brought up live, and I literally, my gut reaction when he started to indicate that this was a lighthouse, hey, stop it! And I said that, Jeremy, I think that has already gone behind the curve. And what do you know? When we checked it out, it had gone behind the curve, but it was in the picture. So yeah, it came from Jeremy.
Hey, hey Apollo.
Big shaker.
Hello, Apollo.
Yeah. Mute him.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
I've just popped him on mute. I didn't know if he was talking to us.
Apollo's having a beer.
I popped you on mute, Apollo. I didn't know if you were talking to us or someone in the background. Anyway, if you did want to talk to us, just pop yourself off mute.
Apollo's having a beer in the afternoon.
Yeah, he's in Malaysia.
Yeah, this is so good to visit the early Flat Earth debate shows, because you can see all these big globe proponents just, you know, proposing all this evidence for all the housekeeping questions and many more. They make a lot of assertions in the early shows.
Yes.
So, are we all happy to attribute Gem Panda to that particular housekeeping question?
But you know what's going to happen, right?
But I don't know, that I can discuss later. We've got about a quarter of an hour left on the show, and I just want to get through that. It's a good amount of time to go slowly through the housekeeping questions one by one and attribute people to them. But any objections?
No, carry on.
Right, we'll move on. So, axial rotation of the Earth-based variety. Where did that meet its demise?
Timmy Osman, the rotation, the poles.
There's numerous ways that came to its demise, but the best one is just asking them for antipodal status. Prove the antipode.
Well, I'm going to go with Jose on that one. So for years, quite literally years, Tim would assert, as did JLB, but for different reasons, that, well, you can't disprove southern hemisphere rotation. In other words, it's another begging the question, affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. But ultimately speaking, that initial constant battering the drum of that particular logical fallacy was Tim Osman. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can't actually remember what his point was. You'll have to remind us.
Just because lights in the sky are spinning,
you can't have southern rotation in the southern hemisphere on a flat plane. It's like, no, you can't beg the question that the Earth's a sphere, assume it is a sphere, and then demand you get that sphere observation to work on a plane when you've already assumed it's a sphere to begin with. That makes absolutely no sense.
I also think the destruction of the Coriolis argument attributed to that particular housekeeping question.
Yeah, the derivative. That's going to be George Nathan with the Coriolis, but it's a derivative of the actual rotation, I think.
Well, yeah, but they claim Coriolis as proof of rotation.
It is ridiculous because there is no Coriolis.
Exactly.
Effect doesn't happen.
Okay, I'm good with that. So basically, by land, we've got George Netanyahu, and by air or by sky, it's Tim Osman for the axial rotation. So the ground-based Coriolis effect, we observe a deviation because the ground spins and the atmosphere doesn't. That would be George. And then with, if you assume the Earth's a sphere, you will see southern rotation in the southern hemisphere. That would be Tim Osman. So yeah, axial rotation can have two people attributed it, George and Tim. I'm happy with that. I think we'll all know who the next one will be. So any evidence that we can have a gas pressure without a container?
Yeah, never. I discussed this on the Early Bird show. It's just not going to happen. Not even in theory, even if you assume all these presuppositions of how it is supposed to work, then dramatically for the globers. Gravity, this gravitational pull, still could not contain the Earth, but they can definitely imagine it, so they just leave that where it is, leave it to the fantasy. Because even mathematically, even in their model, the physics just don't work.
You just don't
For some reason, M. Scott Fish come to mind on this gas pressure without a container. I mean, besides red rhetorics, which always bitching about rockets, M. Scott Fish always got a good explanation for this. I don't know, it's my take.
Oh, no.
Are you saying container is the cause of the gas pressure?
No, it's called an antecedent.
You're saying we can't have gas pressure without one, P.
Containers don't cause gas pressure, P. That's not the cause. Yeah? It's a necessary antecedent.
They allow it. They don't cause it, but they do allow it. They make it possible.
Well, yeah, without it, it would not be possible, moreover. So without a container, there is no pressure.
Where's your evidence for that?
That sounds like a citation. Have you cited somebody there, Nathan?
Well, no, because if it was a quote, it would be without the balloon, there is no pressure. So a physics teacher explained that if you fill up a balloon with gas, P, it has a gas pressure. But were you to remove the balloon, the gas pressure that you blew up and put into that balloon immediately dissipates into the surrounding area. Now that's an atmospheric pressure, so there's just a small pressure differential there. However, we have gas pressure here on Earth, the tiny dot in the vast vacuum of space that's enormous and never-ending and 10 to the minus 11 torr. But magically, the gas pressure we all know and love and breathe and experience manages to stay here. And the only thing that is asserted to actually have that occur is a religious belief in a thing called gravity that has absolutely no scientific backing whatsoever, and is also denounced by the current rhetoric of gravity, which is shocking but true.
Yeah.
Even by their own standards, their own presuppositions, it just doesn't work. It's a very sad fact.
But I'm happy, my point being, to attribute conspiracy cats to this particular fallacy.
Yeah, I would. Because he is the reason for it. He is the reason for that point.
What causes gas pressure?
Oh God.
Sorry, what's the cause? Who cares?
Gas.
We're not trying to establish the cause of gas pressure.
Right.
Sorry, P. We definitely have gas pressure. The cause, who cares? It definitely exists. I don't need to disprove that we have gas pressure. I'm breathing it right now. The bit that we're disproving,
it's so
P.
easy to
The bit
answer.
that
You
we're
just say,
disproving.
what causes gas pressure?
Oh, my bad, Darwin.
Gas.
I shouldn't be allowed to make this example, really. You should carry on. The point that we're disproving, P, is the vacuum of space. A pressure difference that's absolutely astronomical and vast. We are a tiny dot, according to the heliocentric religion, in, guess what? A vast vacuum of space. Yet, magically, we don't have the effects of entropy. We just have gas pressure magically staying in this tiny dot that's got no barrier, no balloon. Without the balloon, there is no pressure, and Earth doesn't have a balloon around it. People, according to the space religion, travel from the gas pressure into the vacuum without being anything to preclude them doing it. There's no barrier in between, just gas pressure then vacuum. Oh, there's a gradient. Oh, really? Still 10 to the minus 11 torr, and entropy would absolutely disperse the teeny tiny little blue marble dot and its gas pressure immediately into that vast vacuum because it's 10 to the minus 11 torr.
How do you know the container is an antecedent to having air pressure?
Say again?
Fair question.
How do you know the container is an antecedent to having air pressure?
It's in the definition, P.
And you can demonstrate it.
Well, it's in the
name.
It's in the
title. A container, a balloon. Well, try to just see what happens to the air pressure when you disrupt the balloon.
It's in the title. Pressure. It's got to press on something, P. It doesn't press on a vacuum that's 10 to the minus 11 torr. It ain't pressing on that, sunshine. I assure you.
Like Conspiracy Cat said, P. Without the balloon, there is no pressure. You have to have the balloon to have the pressure.
The container isn't causing the gradient, though.
That's a different point, and we can address that. But we want you to accept that there has to be a container to have the pressure first.
Right, let's move on.
I think you need some evidence for that.
What? That you need a container of gas pressure? No problem.
Before you can talk about the gradient,
hold on, let's just give P what he wants. No problem. I can give you 1,000
place.
examples of gas pressure with a container. That's no problem. No problem. It gets delivered on the back of trucks all day long, P, in containers to maintain the pressure. Right? Now you show me one without a container. You show me a balloon that you've blown up, popped, and it manages to hold that gas pressure in a nice, neat circle inside atmospheric pressure. Don't even have to do it in a vacuum. Just show it with a pressure differential, because you like going on about pressure differentials and gradients, right? Well, we've got atmospheric pressure. Blow up a balloon, pop it, and make sure that gas pressure stays in place without the container, the balloon. Demonstrate that to me. And when you say, well, prove that we've got gas pressure and it needs a container, I'll show you a box truck with a load of gas canisters on it. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So moving on. Scientific evidence of gravity, anybody?
No. Just an
Nope.
operation.
Yeah, Google gravity.
Oh, that's not scientific evidence now, is it? Googling something isn't scientific evidence.
Google trolls and shills and paid agents too.
So who's going to get... I'm going to attribute this to the rumpus.
What, the lack of evidence for gravity?
Correct.
Body of science, Nathan.
Yeah, that's what you've got for your evidence of gravity. The body of science, the consensus of men in white coats with name tags who call themselves scientists, who start the scientific method at step 3. So they start with the experiment, and then conjure a phenomena, and then say their hypothesis, which is a mathematical hypothesis, is a proof. So it's about as devoid of science as it could ever be, referring to the Cavendish experiment, of course.
I don't remember who it was that brought up the lack of evidence for gravity. I think it was all of them at some point.
Yeah, but the person who's fought it the most vehemently would be the Rumpus.
Yeah, I'd agree. We'll give it to Rumpus.
Yeah, he even tried to show you an experiment in a white piece of cardboard with an equation written on it, and he said that's his scientific evidence.
Doesn't science support gravity?
No, P. That's the point.
Really? Where did the idea of gravity come from?
Yeah, really. Who
came
cares?
from architecture.
Who cares?
That's
It's
where
got
it
no
came
scientific
from.
backing.
Don't answer
Don't
for
care
it.
about the motivation or where it came from. Don't care. Just doesn't have any scientific
I am
backing.
going
It's
to
just a
answer
religious
for him.
belief.
We already won, okay?
No, don't answer his questions.
It's all about
Let him answer his
education
own.
for them.
But Google
but
tells
Arwen-
me that gravity is established as a scientific fact.
Oh, really? Well, scientific facts are established through systematic experimentation, which is hypothesis-driven. Now, if you look at the hypothesis for the Cavendish experiment, it's a mathematical one, unfortunately, P, and it doesn't have an independent and a dependent variable. It has something that you conjure within the apparatus, the experiment. So it doesn't start with the observed phenomena. It's not science. Unfortunately, you don't have that as much as you'd like to. It's just a religious belief. So moving on to the distance to
It's
the
not
sun.
true, though.
Oh, really? Well, do you want to show
That
me
is
scientific
true.
evidence then, P?
Nothing what you say is true.
Really? Well, do you want to show me scientific evidence for gravity then?
Why are you lying?
No, that's not my request for a question about my motivations. It's a request for scientific evidence of gravity. Do you have that or not?
Well, you don't you think
you're
that
struggling
the
to find a different way to
scientific
assert that you
community
don't
believes
have
in gravity?
it. Shut your mouth, P. We're moving on. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Yeah, there's
There's no
a lot of
distance.
evidence for that.
Go on then, P. What's the evidence for the distance of the sun?
Measuring the angles.
No.
Measuring the
Sun's
angle.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, anyway.
You have to know
Hang on.
where it is
Hang
in
on,
order
hang
to use triangulation.
Hang on, I've got this one. Can you tell me what you mean by measuring the angles?
Aristophanes.
Oh, really? So who was Aristophanes?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Sticks in the ground.
Exactly.
We've covered this and we've only got
Jesus
about 5
Christ,
minutes
sticks
left
in
on
the
this
ground.
particular live show. So, according to Paper Explanator, we have to assume that the sun is 93 million miles away, P. That's a guy on your side. We have to assume the distance.
Jamie
to the sun.
Brown.
Yeah, you're just throwing out random people's
Jamie
names
Brown?
now, P,
What's going
while I
on?
make my
Jamie
point
Brown.
about your religion and how you assume the
Brown's
distance to
supposed
the
to-
sun.
Jamie Brown is your proof now?
Jamie Brown.
Jamie Brown is your
Jamie
proof for the
Brown
distance
stepped
to the
away
sun.
from
Oh, Jesus.
true.
Right.
So, Paper Explanator is going to get this one.
Tiger
Anybody
Dan.
disagree?
Nathan, can you just present my screen?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to ask P something. Is this who
Brown.
Aristophanes is, P?
You take the seat off your bicycle and go for a ride.
Is that Aristophanes?
Dan.
Don't be blasphemous, Riley.
Is that Aristophanes, P?
Tiger Dan. Jamie Brown.
What's going on with Jamie Brown? Why do you keep saying Jamie Brown?
Jamie Brown stepped away from the movement, basically retracted into sort of like a globishness. I
Good
think
for-
he
good for
just
him.
had
trouble
with
did he
these-
disappear with distance
the
to the sun?
autumn time.
That's all I care about.
He's got
Two
some
more
questions. He'll be fine. Leave Jamie alone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
anyway,
that's it.
so...
He's just sick of it all.
God. I just want to get through housekeeping. It's nearly the end of the hour show. Still got 3 questions to actually get an answer to. So
One more minute.
He keeps obfuscating, so that's the issue.
Distance to the sun. Are we all happy to attribute that to Paper
There is
Explanator
none
or
of
not?
that. Move on.
No distances.
Move on.
Paper Explanator. Not really, because it was only like a hand wave dismissal thing that he did.
Proving you
surely
wrong.
it's got to be people that argue Aristophanes or radar,
I'm just
and
proving
radar
you
was
wrong.
argued by the Rumpus.
Come on, Riley. We only have 2 minutes left, so let's just move on.
All right.
Cool.
So who
Let
can we
the
attribute to
curve.
it then? Who would you like to attribute to it? I don't mind who.
I think we should attribute it to Rumpus because Rumpus was the one that brought up Radar.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. No, hang on. Why don't we go with... Hang on. Surely we've got to
Curvewater.
give it to what's his name? What was that guy that brought up Cassini and I jumped off the sofa because I heard him say it?
Oh,
Jimmy.
yeah.
Jimmy.
He's a nobody. I honestly want to attribute it to Paper because he was the first person to basically disclaim that it's an assumption.
All right, then. We'll put it against Paper Explanator.
It's the first
And then if
one.
he rejects that, we'll go with Jimmy. Some bloke called Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy is a nobody, but yeah, Jimmy was the one that was foolish enough to fall into the trap about Huygens.
I waited weeks for that.
Yeah.
Is Jimmy the one that say he has a P900 but he didn't have one?
Yeah, I think
Jimmy's
so.
the one that read from the citation and added a whole sentence in there that wasn't there and passed it off as though it was.
I remember Jimmy from the Seinfeld show.
The one changer.
Shout out to Jimmy.
We're not going to get through this in this hour. So,
R
right,
value?
there's two more. Self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. Paul Voigt.
Paul Voigt. Yeah.
Boom.
Paul Voigt, yeah.
Okay, we will get to the end. And Red's rhetoric for the presupposition of an R value.
Oh, for when he did the moon calculations with his friend.
Well, just everything he ever does ever.
The earliest one I can remember is that one, the video that Thingy did in response to it. Let me check my history. I can't remember what his channel's called.
Smokescreen Design did a response called "Is Jeranism Dead Wrong?" Part 2. And in that video, he basically points out that the way the mathematics works is to insert the R value. And this was Red Rhetoric 3 years ago, maybe even longer.
Smokescreen Design it is.
The R value is self-presupposing.
It's
not self-proving, but self-presupposing.
Nathan, it's Smokescreen Design, and it's Is Jeranism Flat Wrong Part 1, Distance to the Moon.
Cool.
About 16 minutes in.
So I think that's it, right? You're not going to believe my
Minds of
statement
Aristophanes.
now, that concludes the housekeeping after an hour and 5 minutes of live show. And with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel. Now, I'm going to say something else. I've disclaimed this a couple of times in the show, but this show will get broadcast or rebroadcast with an extra bit. So the discussion between it was this morning, Anthony and myself, with me explaining pretty much this to him, although they always get recorded. But yeah, so tune in after the second show finishes if you missed the first part of this show and you want to see the extra bit, the warm-up, if you like, on Flat Earth Debate Uncut, which is on Nathan Oakley channel, and there is a link in the info box below this video so that you can check that out if you missed the first part of this show. So that'll go out as a premiere once the second live show finishes. So I'm also going to say a massive thank you to all of the live audience who tuned into this particular show, and say a massive thank you. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do, but if you liked it, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you in the next video and maybe in the live chat on Nathan Oakley channel when the premiere goes out after the second live show.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
On the compression zone and the disappearing from the bottom up on the boats and ships. I will
Awesome.
take that personally.
I did an image for you, an image against the two that you posted, and you can see the compression that you took on that boat.
Yeah, I seen it. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Very, very noticeable.
Man, Apollo, where did you get those old screens? I used to sell those things new.
I'm showing Don right now.
So just for you guys who are on the panel at the moment, so whatever you say now will go out to the second channel audience. Does that make sense?
Uh-oh.
P-Mouse looks like Oscar the
So
Grouch.
we're not live, but later on, in maybe an hour and 50 minutes or thereabouts, what we're saying now will be broadcast. So although we're not live, and it's obviously the pressure's off, just be aware. I'm not going to disclaim this every single time, but because I've now got an actual order and what I'm doing in my mind and how I'm doing it, I'm literally doing it as we speak. I'm publishing what that show. I know I can't, can I? Because we're still recording it. Say your goodbyes to any of the people in the backup channel live audience.
P Mouse looks like Oscar the Grouch with a beard.
Oh right, is that what we've got to end a formal first show on the second channel?
Come on, P, you didn't even smile, and that was well funny.
Yeah, if you want to see Conspiracy Cats getting wrecked, watch my video later.
Fucking hell, he got fucking raped today. Conspiracy Cats.
That'll do to do an outro with on for the second channel at Ranty. So plug your video. Give it the title that it's going to have, so people can actually search it.
Oh well, I'm not sure what the title's going to be, but you can search the channel Ranty Flat Earth, and there should be a video. It will be something about boats don't go over the horizon. That might well be the title. So, and I'm going to show how the atmosphere hides boats going away. Essentially, literally, boats don't go over the horizon, and the video will be out today.
Cool. So I'm also going to say now, because this is to the secondary audience, a massive thank you to tuning in to Flat Earth Debate Uncut. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!